Today in Factory of the Future podcast, we're with Bryce Carpenter, who serves as the Executive Vice President, Chief Operations and Strategic Officer at Connexus, Indiana. Since joining Connexus, Indiana in 2016, Bryce has held 5 progressive leadership roles, reflecting both on his versatility and his deep commitment to Indiana's advanced manufacturing and logistics economy. In his current role, he oversees industry engagement, public sector relations, operations, research, and marketing, working in close partnership with the President and CEO to drive strategic planning, fundraising, and organizational growth. At the center of Bryce's work is convincing the Connexus Indiana Advanced Industrial Council, CIAIC, shaping transformation and infrastructure policies through the services of the Executive Committee of the Joint Transportation Research Program and multiple statewide advisory committees. Serving as a senior leader of the AML, Industry Talent Association, with Connexus administers Indiana's AML apprenticeship and talent pathways. Bryce holds a Bachelor's of Arts degrees from Central College in Danville, Kentucky. He lives in Carmel, Indiana, with his wife and their 2 children. What you'll notice about Bryce is that he's very passionate about the Indiana manufacturing communities and driving growth with the Indiana's economy. We'll go into deep about education, Indiana manufacturing, and snowplows. So enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Factory of the Future, People-Powered Health. Podcast focused on trends shaping the future of manufacturing. I'm Alexandria Burek, your host, here with A.W. Schultz, 2 thought leaders with a passion for people and manufacturing. Today and every episode, we are diving deep into the advancements, sustainable practices, and dynamic changes transforming how we produce everything.
And now welcome Alexandria Burek and A.W. Schultz.
Okay, and we're recording.
Okay.
Sorry about the mute, not stopping on, but we are recording right now. I'll edit this out.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Oh, okay. One more time. Hi, everyone. Oh. Okay, don't move.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Factory of the Future. Today we have Bryce Carpenter. Bryce, thank you so much for taking time to come on the show. Welcome to Factory of the Future podcast. We'd love to hear about, first question is basically, tell us the most pressing things you're working on and kind of how you got to that point. So,
yeah, thank you for having me on today. I'm excited. Again, our organization, Connexus Indiana, is a nonprofit organization focused on ensuring that the advanced manufacturing and logistics sectors within Indiana continue to thrive. Indiana is a unique state in that we're the most manufacturing intensive state in the country. So a great parallel to think is Indiana is more economically dependent upon advanced manufacturing and logistics than Hawaii is tourism. So very much the economic health and the vitality of the residents of our state is dependent on the success of advanced manufacturing. 1 in 4 workers are in advanced manufacturing and logistics. It's a third of our state's economy. So we spend sort of every day in and out with our partners trying to make sure that the climate for advanced manufacturing and logistics within the state is poised to continue to be a national leader.
Bryce, for our viewers, can you define what advanced manufacturing is for your organization?
It's a bit of a moving target, like so many things, and I feel like I have that caveat a lot of times coming from the nonprofit space. It's a bit of a moving target, but there is a standard definition of industries that invest a standard amount in technology per capita or per employee. So our organization, the CEOs of Indiana Corporate Partnership, has a couple of sector-focused initiatives. We're advanced manufacturing logistics. There's life sciences, there's ag biosciences, technology, and collectively our state views that our group as the advanced industries, and that's all tied back to, again, commonly used calculation of investment into technology per worker.
Yeah, that's interesting because I like how you say moving target because advanced manufacturing. I use smart manufacturing, Industry 4.0, Industry 5.0,
Yep.
digital transformation. They're kind of all in the wheelhouse and circling around. So I mean, I like how you use that term, advanced manufacturing. I know you've got a lot of people on your board that have a lot of just influence within the Indiana organization. And I remember we talked earlier, and you had mentioned, I said like, wow, that's a big board. And you said, yeah, it is. And we've got a lot of people that are very interested and dedicated to supporting the Indiana organization. One thing I like to understand is a little bit about where I'm still trying to get my head around is your nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
And, I remember you telling me that, like I'm in Texas, I'm in Dallas. And it's like, do you think we've got something in Texas? And you said, probably not. Can you explain a little bit why we wouldn't? Or,
Yeah, you probably don't, but you've got the bones of it. And our organization is unique because sort of the thing that you've continued to wrestle with is, okay, we're an industry-focused organization that's a nonprofit. That right there is an oxymoron for all intents and purposes, right? And what is unique about our organization is sort of our governance model, where I mentioned the CEOs of Indiana Corporate Partnership as our parent organization. That's the actual registered nonprofit. And then as we do nonprofit eligible work, we then are eligible for grants and things like that. We're very fortunate here, and we have the Lilly Endowment, which is the largest philanthropic organization in the world, thanks to the continued success of the team over at Eli Lilly and Company. So they are and have been a major supporter of ours dating back to 1999 when the parent organization was formed. Connexus was created in 2007 and have been, I mentioned moving target before when I talked about the definition. The way that we're able to approach things is a bit of a moving target because we operate in this sort of multiple financial worlds, and this is not why people listen to the podcast, but between philanthropic and nonprofit, they have two very different guidelines, but we're able to operate in both to where we can work with industry, work with that 130 industry partner group that you're talking about, while also doing philanthropic talent work at the same time.
That's very, very, very fascinating, very interesting. I think that leads into a separate topic, but before we move on, one of the things I'm interested to hear your kind of observations and experience over the last maybe 2-3 years. You talk a lot about investment in technology and what manufacturing businesses are investing in. But what I'm interested in is what are the dying technologies, right? So like everyone, it's easy to talk about the new things, but what are we seeing like fall off the radar that was like the hottest stuff to have, 5, 10, 15 years ago that like people aren't really going to anymore? Is there anything that you see like that?
The first couple of ones that jump out are on the logistics side of our work. We do a lot of work with the Indiana Department of Transportation around sort of the slow build to autonomous vehicle movement, whether it's passenger or semi-truck commercial movement, and platooning, LiDAR were two huge words for a long time, and we were trying to recruit trucking companies in to participate in platooning demonstrations out west because it was going to launch the hub and spoke model and change the face of transportation. I still think conceptually that idea makes sense. But when we ran tests, we worked with partners, the fuel savings weren't there to justify it. For a while, autonomous or assisted driving was all going to be based on LiDAR, and then GPS positioning got so good, you didn't need to have all of the investments into LiDAR. We were working with the Department of Transportation. They were trying to figure out, so LiDAR was really dependent upon these reflective beads embedded in paint. It's how they was able to spot the lane markings. Well, Indiana, ton of snow. Snow plows come over throughout the years, scrape all the beads out of the paint. So they were really trying to work on like, how do we support LiDAR to guide these vehicles? And when we're blowing up the infrastructure of it every time it snows. So those are two things that quickly jump out. I don't know from our perspective on the manufacturing side that we have seen a lot of technologies be abandoned. I think we've seen some of them fail because they weren't done correctly. But that's more so on the company, on the lack of an integration plan, on the lack of workforce alignment versus, robots and cobots have been around for 20 years. So those are still the number one thing we hear from our partners that they're investing in. It's just a matter of, does a company do it in the right way?
Amen to that.
Alexander asked that question, and I was like, man, I got to think for myself. I've never been asked that before. And I'm still sitting here thinking about that.
Yeah.
Good answer, Bryce. And I'm thinking like maybe railroad. I mean, it's loss of its dependency. I mean, that's the only thing I'm thinking about. No, you don't think so? Okay.
No, the rails are fundamental in logistics because it's a lot cheaper.
But
and you have to.
Well, and we try to avoid the discussions around, because we have railroads that we partner with, as well as the trucking industry, and it's a bit of a Hatfields and McCoy's group historically, and they are complementary to one another, but rail is federally governed and restricted and union, so a lot of the tech adoption that would happen there has to be approved at the federal level in concert with the unions. So it doesn't really allow for this accelerated innovation by one rail carrier or the next.
Yeah, the only reason I say it in that manner is when we were starting to, I've been part of organizations where we're building manufacturing sites, and a lot of times the railroad doesn't come into the conversation that much. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason I bring that forward. But to your two points, that is correct. And I'm gonna sit and let that simmer a little bit.
Yeah.
Question, Alexander. I think we could talk about that more.
We have seen really good examples of like a rail spur go into a warehouse or a manufacturing environment. We've got a partner on the council here, Venture Logistics, that operates they're a trucking company that operates a rail serviced warehouse. And it's a really unique model, and the rail line goes right into the facility, and then the products work themselves to the right and end up going out the bay doors into trucks. There are some more of that. There's a big economic development opportunity here in Indiana called the LEAP District, which is a biosciences hub. They're doing a lot of rail spurs into that facility. So they're doing more. It's just, it's a very difficult model to execute.
Yeah, interesting. So I guess on the note of dying technologies and shifting kind of landscape within the advanced manufacturing scope of Indiana, what you were mentioning before we started recording, this kind of question that everybody has about how do we keep people employed despite these massive layoffs? Yeah. What's the right way to reskill them? Is it long horizon or is it compressed? Is it very specialized? Is it generalized? So maybe help us all, kind of think through this from your perspective and from the colleagues that you're kind of working through this problem. And maybe we can have a thoughtful kind of just discussion about what's the right approach with reskilling some of these people who have been recently laid off, and how do we get them into the workforce again?
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of a longer intro into that question, but I promise I'll hope to land the plane on it. Our organization is really focused on productivity. Like that's kind of the number one thing that Indiana advanced manufacturing and logistics needs to focus on. There's two sides, there's two inputs, GDP, people. If people are going to be flat, you got to increase GDP. So how we work, a lot of the time we spend on how do AML firms within the state increase GDP per worker. That's why there's such an emphasis on technology adoption for us and digital adoption. What we are seeing, despite what some of the way it's covered is that investments into digital adoption lead to increased headcount and increased wages for workers. We feel confident. We've run in partnership with the state of Indiana a program called the Manufacturing Readiness Grants Program, and what that did is that provided matching grants to small to mid-sized manufacturers that were looking to make their first investment into a piece of digital equipment. And ultimately what the program did is it got people off the fence, right? There's a million reasons not to do something for the first time, but finances is a big one. You know, how confident are you in your ROI, your use case, et cetera? So the state came in, they said, hey, we'll match the first money in, dollar for dollar, up to $200,000. So fast forward 5 years, about $60 million in public funding, 600 projects later. While it was not necessarily the intent at the beginning of the program, but we've got scores of examples of digital adoption leads to increased headcount and increased wages. And I say all of that because so often we also talk about what would seem to be a competing side of it, which is if you have workforce constraints within your building, you must digitally adopt because those particularly the roles that no one's coming into. Well, if you adopt because of a shortage of workers, and then due to your adoption, you add more workers, like the juxtaposition between those two things. And I think that that's an interesting contrast is so often we talk about the need to digitally adopt because of a lack of available workforce, but we're saying all of our data shows that headcount grows and wages grow. So how are we telling that story? How are we aligning those two things? And to get back to your question, especially in states where populations are flat, which is most states across the United States, do you put a larger emphasis on reskilling versus longer tail talent development pipelines, particularly for this generation? And they're not the first young people in the history of the United States to want to try a few careers before they get started. But, you know, where is that best emphasis for the state to put their resources is to sort of tailor dedicated streams of people or react to quickly the shifts within the economy due to overall technology, AI, macroeconomic, international trade issues, right? So that balance between being strictly tied to a structure versus fluidity in your workforce development.
Okay. I'm trying to think about a follow-up question to that. What I'm just taken aback by, and I think my brain is still trying to process, maybe AW, you're about to say the same thing, and I'll pipe down after this, but I just am amazed and so happy to hear that when companies are implementing technology, it's resulting in higher wages for the worker and increased headcount. I think everybody is in such a panic about that. And some of these mass layoffs are kind of, I would say, against all of what you just shared in terms of what you're seeing in the data. And I would say that maybe perhaps those layoffs are unrelated to tech adoption or implementation. Maybe just a kind of different driving factor behind those. But yeah, I just am so encouraged to hear that. So thank you for sharing that. And hopefully the audience is feeling the same. AW, what were you about to say?
Well, Alexander, I go back to the conversation we had a couple weeks ago. I don't know if we were on the air or not, but I know we were talking about it on the balance between university education and what is needed. What is the manufacturing industry really looking for? And there's still a disconnect. And one of the things, Bryce, I'm actually the chair of the Society of Maintenance and Reliability North Texas chapter. Okay. And one of the things that we're driving is, education through STEM and building people is because I'm a firm believer, if you don't know what you want to do, the manufacturing community has got good, stable, reliable jobs that can keep you employed. I'm going to say forever. And I'll defend anybody that says anything against it, but that's my thought on that. And the skill sets that we're looking for, I'm saying the manufacturing head person, I didn't graduate in college, even though a lot of my education was filtered around the manufacturing community, and it didn't align with it. And it's been several years since I graduated with my undergrad, but it's I still see a disconnect, and that's kind of where I get passionate about it.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I will give academic institutions credit, and I'll do so just through my narrow prism of the state of Indiana, but they have been more proactive with adjusting their model. Now, 2-year community college, Indiana's fortunate. We have the largest community college in the country, Ivy Tech. We work day in and day out with them. They're on our board. We work very closely with them, adjusting the curriculum, the skills taught, the delivery mechanisms, the time on task within a course. So we are working with, we've got this Advanced Industries Council. It's 130 companies from around the state, but we've got a group of 43 hand raisers that have come together to say, let us help colleges, training centers, redo curriculum so that it aligns to what we're seeing day in and day out. We're going to identify key skills, and oh, by the way, we're going to give you all feedback on, is it nighttime, is it modular, is it online, is it a regional campus, what's the tipping point of where I'll be able to take somebody off of the floor and send them to a continuing education environment to try to help adjust the models. 4-year institutions have a harder time with that flexibility, but they're doing it as well. We work closely with 4-year institutions as well that, again, serve on our board. But it's how do you have all of these things operate in concert with one another. In Indiana, in high school, where high school students can be exposed to advanced manufacturing or new careers, it's called the Career and Technical Education, CTE pathway. There's 13 CTE pathways just for advanced manufacturing. So do we have clear pipelines, to your point, for younger people that say, okay, I don't know what I want to do, but advanced manufacturing is far and away higher average wage in the state of Indiana than any other sector group. It's $90,000. They're long burning careers. Yes, you can say AI is a threat, but Rolls-Royce, Cummins, they've been manufacturing in this state for over 100 years. We've had the creation of the assembly line. We have survived all of these changes across advanced manufacturing. These companies continue to flourish. They're not falling away. So it is a dependable, it is a growing economy here in the state, and we have to get a number of entry points for younger folks, for career change folks, for older folks to get into advanced manufacturing and logistics, because they are meaningful careers.
Yeah. I'm so encouraged to hear that. And also, excited for some of these young people to experience what it's like to be a part of a manufacturing company. I think there was a big part of me that for a long time rejected my career path in industrial manufacturing and logistics. And recently in the last year and a half, 2 years, I've really changed my attitude about that. From early on, I always found it fascinating to really kind of be on the factory floor, see how things are actually made, and then see how they kind of distribute out into the world and everything else that came into that. So I think if younger people could focus on that a little bit and kind of the intricacies and how these companies that nobody knows about are the kind of key to their daily products that they're not even thinking about. That's kind of a cool experience, I think, personally. And I think if I had to make any predictions about the future of education, I see a lot more emphasis on certifications, like quick, short, compressed certifications, not these long, drawn out degrees that are expensive and by the time you're done with it, outdated. So I hope that that's kind of the path for the future for, current professionals as well as those coming up in the world.
Yeah, the other thing I guess I want to mention, Alexandria, is Bryce. we've been going through an episodes on the history of manufacturing. We started in the what we started
50s, I think.
1950s, and we're going up to two,
Yeah.
and our predictions for the 2050s. And one thing we've seen consistent is manufacturing jobs have been decreasing in the we're just
U.S. overall, yeah.
U.S.
Yeah.
overall.
Yep.
Which is you can argue that maybe these are going overseas. What we saw facts that they have, but there's we've become more efficient, and there's a lot of automation. Advanced manufacturing plays a part in it, and especially the U.S. I mean, you can argue we're one of the. I'm just going to throw it out there. One of the top 5 advanced manufacturing countries in the world, and we have to do that because our price of labor is premium in a lot of cases. To your case, I mean, you're trying to draw more into the state, and I mean, you just call out advanced manufacturing, meaning that you can also go. There's also just the hand picking things that are all just manual labor, but in the U.S., I don't even think you have to say advanced. It's just called manufacturing. We think advanced. That's just my mindset on it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is the roles within these manufacturing facilities have evolved as well, right? So and we talk about average wage going up due to the investment in a piece of digital equipment. A lot of times it's because if you're automating a low skill line within your facility, you are moving those workers out from administering that low skill task to now it's people that need to operate alongside a cobot or maintain a cobot or schedule a series of cobots, right? It's a higher skill task that is higher pay. And, we've got a company on the council. It's a small company. Like, there are a million different ways to do this. And they knew that they continued to struggle with labor availability. They're in kind of the northeast corner of the state. And finally, they went out one day and they said to the employees, like, what's the number one job you hate in this facility? And it came back and it was palletizing.
Oh.
Which they were probably right. And then they said, yeah, I know. And they said, fine.
I hate that too.
Yeah. So they said, fine. So they went ahead and they automated their palletizing. They moved the people that were on that into different roles, and they've seen capacity increases and then worker sentiment increase as well, because they've taken off this job that no one wanted to do. It was painful, it was repetitive. So there are ways, and we talked a little bit about, the technology isn't necessarily outdated. It's when it doesn't work, we see the bad application of it. If it's done the right way in concert to augment the workforce that you have and to leverage the skills that you either have or can teach, it will work and be additive to your workforce and to your operations.
That's
Bryce,
incredible.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We probably have to bring this call to a close, but I do want to comment. I have recently read an article about the same thing you were talking about, is going out there and finding the worst job out there and finding how we automate it. And that's where the focus comes around. And it sounds so simple, and it's like, is the question being asked?
If you think about it, that's a very human-centric approach.
Yep.
That's the perfect definition of merging people with technology. I'm going to selflessly plug here. So I'm developing a software that it literally will eliminate the worst administrative jobs for the logistics companies and asset-based carriers or anybody who's operating basically fleet assets. I know this because I've personally digitized and had to touch over 100,000 documents in my career. And it is painstakingly the most miserable aspect of my job, but it's absolutely necessary. Like, unfortunately, titles, registrations, and inspections inspections can be digitized, but titles and registrations, you still have to have the physical paper copy of those things. So, but anyhow, I think we are going to come to a close. Bryce, you've been so generous with your time. Thank you so much. And what a positive and uplifting episode. I have to say, like, we, not that any of our guests are doom and gloom or, kind of like fearfully warning against the doom of technology, but I really hope the audience enjoyed this as much as we did. I speak for AW, and I'll say you gave us a lot to think about, and hopefully the audience feels that as well. So thank you.
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the discussion today.
Cool. Great.
Anything else you want to say, Bryce, or are you good?
No, I'm good.
Okay, good. All right. Well, this is an episode of Factor the Future. This is Factor the Future, and we are out of here like finished goods. Stay tuned for our next episode of Factory of the Future, where we're exploring groundbreaking techniques and behaviors that are reshaping industrial landscapes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and help others discover the cutting-edge insights transforming manufacturing as we know it.